Bro- Hey, it says the broadcast is live. I'm horticulturist Gary Bachman, and this is this month's Ask Me Anything that you want to ask. From a landscape garden perspective, and I'll give you my 2 cents on it. I won't lead you in the wrong direction. I'll give you the straight scoop with that. So who's if anybody is live here, and if you'll just give me just a second, because I'm working on my phone here. I'm trying to bring us up live on the laptop, so I can actually see questions that come in. If I can't see them, you know the drill. We're going to rely on Ellen, and she'll pop the questions up for us, and it'll all be okay. Just hang on just a second here. Hey, it says the broadcast is live. Oh, we got a little bit of a she'll pop the question of a delay here. Okay, I think I got it. So we're good. I think I really need to be honest with everybody this morning. And this is not some crazy thing that I'm going to tell everybody. But I have always been adamant about when we're going to plant tomatoes out in the spring season, that I don't like to plant early. I like to plant. I try and follow our frost dates on the coast, and when we look at that, it's basically April 5th on the coast. When we move up into the central part of the state, it's around April 10th. It's about today, tomorrow is kind of like that last frost date. And then when we get into North Mississippi, we get into that April 15th range. Those are just general ranges, but they correspond pretty well with our actual last frost dates for spring. But here's where I'm being honest. I'm like every other gardener. This winter we've had, the cold weather, warm weather, cold weather again, all impacted by COVID, and wanting to get out into the garden. Well, I actually planted my tomatoes on March 25th. I just couldn't take it any longer. And so I put 70 plants out at the Urban Nano Farm. We'll see some daily dose videos of how they're doing. And then, so what happens? We had that little bit of cold weather come in right before Easter. And we were visiting my parents up in Tennessee. We were leaving town, and I really struggled with, how am I going to cover my tomato plants? I'm going to be gone for several days. I really wanted to cover them. I really wasn't set up to cover them effectively. So what did I do? I rolled the dice and just let them be. And we watched temperatures. We got down into I think there was a 42 recording at one point. And it really bothered me that I didn't take care of my tomato plants, and I'm just going to have to replant them. Kind of not following the advice I tell everybody else, right? But when we got back, you want to know something? The tomatoes looked pretty good. And I really think that was a result of growing in the earth boxes. The earth boxes weigh about 90 pounds when they're full of water. And that's a big temperature buffer that can work in our favor. And so, yeah, everything looked pretty good. Now, I may have to amend that here this weekend, because we've been in Brookhaven. As soon as we came back from Tennessee, came to Brookhaven to shoot New Southern Gardening TV. So I haven't been home, and there's I still got kind of a sneaking suspicion that maybe I'm going to have some issues, but maybe not. I might be surprised. But I will tell you that next year I will be ready. I will have the frost blanket cut and fitted to my growing style at the Nano Farm. So if or when we ever get cold weather again, when I've got them planted, I'll be able to cover them up, and I'll feel much better myself about that. And brought up the fact that we had that cold snap before Easter. There's a lot of, if you want to call these old wives' tales about, well, you always plant on Good Friday, your tomatoes. And I like to point out that Good Friday can shift from March 22nd all the way to April 25th. That's a 6-week spread. So I always, I don't plant by that, plant on Good Friday. I plant by the frost date, and most of the time we're in pretty good shape about that. So if anybody's got any questions about, when frost date is for your area, send me an email, southerngardening@msstate.edu, and I'll send you some information from MSU Extension on spring frost dates. And I also want to apologize. I have a new ring light, so if I come up and I look like I'm trying to hypnotize everybody with these lights, I'm not trying to do that. It's just reflection in my glasses. I've got to get some some anti reflective coatings put on my lenses here at some time. So we've got one question here from Estella, and thanks for that question. I've got to read this here. Thanks for the show. Look, I appreciate that everybody that watches what we do with Southern Gardening, and members of Southern Gardening Nation. We're all trying to be successful in the garden. But I live in the rural area. Are there any plants I can put around my deck so I can really enjoy it in the evening and night hours to help with mosquitoes and other bugs? You want to know something? That's a great question. There are plants out there that have, some of these, if you want to call it insect repellent type, properties or characteristics. And most of these are like lemongrass. We see like the citronella, geranium, these lemony smelling plants. Most of them have a oil in there, have that citronella. I'm not quite sure if it's actually called citronella, but it's a citronella type oil that has shown some effectiveness in repelling insects. Now, in my experience, you really have to, you just can't put one lemongrass out and repel insects from your yard. You're going to have to plant a lot of these plants. They may help if you put them in small containers sitting on your table as you're sitting out by on the deck. But for the most part, you really need to not rely on those. There are some great repellent products out on the market that will be way more effective than relying on the plant type. I know that the plant type repellents sound great. That I'm just going to be honest, they're just not that effective unless you have a whole lot of these plants and you're sitting in the middle of them. So anyways, that's my take on it. Give it a try. If it works, tell me about it, and I'll pass that along. So thanks for that question, Estella. Now, Ava just sent me a question that her husband planted clumping bamboo many years ago. Here, and I've lost the question here. There we go. It seems to be dying. And are they the same as the wild ones that die every 10 years, or what have I done wrong? To tell you the truth, I am not familiar that bamboo has a, let me get better in the light here. That bamboo has a specific, lifespan like that. It could be that clumping bamboo, that just the way it grows, that all of the roots there are all just so jammed up together that they're actually inhibiting, if you want to say, each other's growth in that clump. one of the things that you might try, and now this is something that's going to take a lot of work, but get into that bamboo and kind of separate it out and replant it. Um, it just sounds like a common problem that happens with some of our perennials that are clumpers, that they just get, the root systems just get so massive together that the plant just can't grow at an optimal in an optimal way. So that would kind of be the kind of be that advice that I would give you. Like I say, it's probably going to be a lot of work, but you may be able to rejuvenate that by division and separating those bamboo plants out and letting giving them some more room to grow. So go ahead, Ava, and give that a try, and you know hopefully that'll help. And if it doesn't, give me an email, and maybe even send me some pictures. Pictures are fantastic. A lot of times I get questions that I just can't picture the situation. So, and if you want to now, before you start dividing, send me some pictures, and I'll go ahead and take a look at them. Now, Darlene sent me, this is a great question we get every year. Can you give some tips on pruning azaleas? The first tip I would give, if you're going to prune azaleas, would be, do you really need to prune? I mean, are the plants just gotten so big? Are they those big, Southern Indicas, Formosa type, where we just get these huge, azalea plants? And you have to decide, if they've just gotten too big. The second point I would make is, don't prune until after they're finished blooming, because azaleas produce their flower buds the previous year. So next year's flower buds are going to be forming, and kind of a a round number date is July 4th. So these azalea plants are going to start producing the flower buds for 2022 after the 4th of July this year. The day lengths are changing, and that stimulates the flower bud production. So if you're going to prune, wait until they're finished. Give them a haircut. Bring them back to the size you want. Every once in a while, we'll get one of these big azaleas that just get too big for the space that they're in. And we think of azaleas as being kind of a delicate plant. Well, these big azaleas, we could basically, severely prune those plants back to a more manageable size, and you may end up with just bare branches. But trust me, that they will produce new shoots, and they may not flower the first year after that, but they'll flower in that second and third year after that severe pruning. And so you can go ahead and reduce the size of those. I have a neighbor here in Ocean Springs where he has a big Southern Indica hedge that he lets grow for 5 or 6 or 7 years. And I think, let's see, I've been here for 14 years now. He just pruned them back the second time last year. So about every 7 years, he takes these 6 or 7 foot tall azaleas and prunes them down to about 18 inches. And it's always amazing, to see that. And by, you get into that late July, beginning of August, all of a sudden there's these little green shoots popping out of these. Basically, you think of them as being bare azalea stumps. And then they start growing. And by that second year, they're nice looking shrubs again. I mean, that's an extreme example, but azaleas, if you need to cut them, if they're just gotten too big, yes, you can aggressively prune those back, and they'll be just fine and fit your space a lot better than they obviously they are now. So, Darlene, I hope that helps. Okay, here now here's one. Now we're getting a little bit out of my expertise. Lee is up in Northeast Mississippi, and he's asking, should I wait a couple weeks to plant my purple hull peas and corn, or am I okay to go ahead? I've only been gardening for 3 years, and I seem to plant too early every year and have had to replant. Well, Lee, that is that's a scenario that a lot of us have gone through. I think that you're okay going with the corn, and I would probably, this is April 9th. I would probably go ahead and yes, start planting your corn. Now, are you talking about big acreage, small plots? That might change my answer a little bit. But I think the corn would be okay. I think our soil temperatures are going to be okay to do that. As far as purple hull peas, you want to know something? I have never grown those. I'm going to be honest. So I'm not sure if now is the time, or to wait a little bit longer. Wait a week or so and let those soil temperatures get up a little higher. I've always had issues, myself planting green beans. I mean, that's kind of the closest, analogy I can make. And it always seems that I either plant too early or I plant too late, and I kind of miss that optimal window. And because of that, I trust, friends of mine that grow green beans, that will trade some tomatoes and will trade some other things for green beans. So that's just one of those crops that I personally have issues with. There are others, and I accept that. But if you want to get some more advice, Lee, contact Northeast Mississippi. I don't know what county you're in. Call the county extension office and ask them that, and they would, I'll bet, have some better information for you than I'm giving you. Listen, I'm giving you some good information. You may be able to fine tune that with the folks up in your county. So give your extension office a call, and let's help you be successful, right? That's what we want. Then Supace, Spartan mosquito repellent works. I've read about Spartan. I've never used it. So if Sue, if you've got more information that you can send me, send it to southerngardening@msstate.edu, because I would really like to. I'd like to know that. And then Estella, she was looking for products. So Sue, help. So listen, the members of Southern Gardening Nation, we help each other, right? So thanks for that. Now, Beth Ann, how and when can I take cuttings from my Confederate rose? That's actually a really fun one to do. And we started doing that several years ago at Coastal R&E. I had offered, because I was reading how to propagate Confederate rose, and just for those that, we're talking about Confederate rose, but it's really not a rose; it's a hibiscus. So just to make that clear. And one of the things that we were doing is, an old-timey way of propagating that plant is to take, I'm gonna say, well, let's see here. It's hard to show in the video here. 8 to 12 inch cuttings of stems, and then just strictly putting them in a bucket of water and forgetting about it for a month. And we tried to do that, and the first time I just messed around with it too much, because I was looking at it every day. I was taking them out of the bucket, and I was looking, there was no roots happening, and I was being very impatient. So a couple years later, went ahead and I collected some more cuttings, and I put them in a bucket out on my back porch, and I just ignored it. And within a month, those cuttings that I had taken had started to produce roots. And it's one of these things. I'm a horticulturist with 30 plus years experience, and there are just some things that really fascinate me. And cut rooting cuttings is one of those. Germinating seeds is another one, because it's just amazing the power that seeds have. But rooting cuttings has always fascinated me, and I like to do it, and I like to try new ways to root plants. But um, Beth Ann, when you take those Confederate rose cuttings, bucket of water, take them out of the sun, put them in a warm place, because the heat does help with the root generation, and ignore them, and come back in a month and see what happens. Now, I will say, just don't take one branch and do that. Take 10, because nobody ever gets 100% rooting with something. So if you take 10 and you get 4 to root, that means you got 40% rooting, and that could be good. But never rely on just a single cutting, because it's either 0 or 100, and most of the time you end up with 0. That's just personal experience. So thanks for that question. Let's see here. God, we've got a bunch of questions coming in here today. And Vivian, my rosemary bushes are dying. She's got a couple of questions here. And we have Florida betany around the bushes. Will the Florida betany kill the rosemary? Okay, couple things there. Rosemary, now this is my experience, likes to grow in a drier condition. Okay. And when we look at Florida betany, that's always kind of an indicator to me that we have some moisture in the soil. So it could be that the Florida betany is not killing your rosemary. It could just be that it's responding to favorable soil conditions. Rosemary really will benefit. And Vivian, I don't know how big your plants are. If you want to send me some pictures, give you some more specific advice. But rosemary, when you put it in the landscape, really benefits from growing in a raised bed, or growing with the crown of the plant, a couple inches higher than the grade of the level of the bed. And that just raises that crown up, keeps it a little drier. So that's always a advice I'll give with rosemary in the in the landscape. Now the Florida betany, if folks aren't familiar with Florida betany, call that rattlesnake weed or rattlesnake root sometimes, because when you dig it up, it produces a root that kind of looks like the end of a rattlesnake. And it can be a little disconcerting sometimes when you see it, but it could be around those rosemary plants that the Florida betany roots are impinging on the root system of the rosemary in kind of a wet situation. So that I'm just going to say that's kind of my best guess on that. Now, also, if you've tried to use a post-emerge herbicide on the Florida betany, maybe that, around your rosemary, I don't know, but if you've done that, that could be impacting the rosemary too. But send me some more information, and I'll get back to you, and we'll try and figure this out. Okay. So let's see here. The bush, a follow-up, bushes are turning a strange light shade of green. That Vivian, send me pictures, because I'm having trouble kind of visualizing that. Okay, that'll be the best course. Now Denise, this is interesting. She enjoys our show. Hey, listen, thank you very much. I have a good time doing this. Southern gardening was not my, on the horizon in my wildest dreams when I was going through school and becoming a professional horticulturist. So I appreciate that you like what we do. I like sharing my personal experience. I like helping people be successful. So Denise's question is, how do I get rid of a privet hedge? It's taking over in North Carolina. Oh my gosh. I didn't see that at first, but this is like going like several states over. To get rid of a privet hedge, now I will make a little bit of a funny here. Sometimes people just move, and someplace that doesn't have a privet hedge. But in all honesty, what you really need to do is you need to remove the plants. And if they're big, you might have to cut them close to the ground, and then you need to kill that root system because that privet will regenerate from those roots. And I would say cut them close to the ground, and then take a paintbrush and use Roundup. I know sometimes Roundup gets a bad rap, but take a Roundup and paint those cut edges that are in the ground, and that will help to eliminate that root system. That you have to do that. If they're big plants, you could have a service come in and root grind or stump grind those plants out. That will help, but that still may leave some of that privet root system still viable and have it come back. So this is one of those situations where I think you really need to be aggressive and getting rid of those root systems. And a product like Roundup or Kills All or one of those products is the way to go to eliminate the problem once and for all, so you don't have to deal with it again. If you want to follow up on that with me, Denise, go ahead, send me an email, southerngardening@msstate.edu, and I'd be glad to help you with that, okay? So now, and Ellen's put my email address out there again, so thank you for that. Let's see, and Sue, I'm not quite sure about the comments on moonflower vines. They're fantastic. I think everybody should try to grow some of these. So we'll just leave it with that. Ava, you're very welcome. Lee, you're welcome. Oh, and here's somebody from Rankin County. Carolyn, how are you doing this morning? If you got a question, send it my way. And then Lee's in Tishomingo. Yeah, contact the extension office there. And then here we got Debbie. This is a great question. The best way to root Katrina rose cuttings. And Debbie, I'm assuming that you're talking about the Peggy Martin rose, the hurricane rose. And they're actually pretty easy to root if you take a 4 to 6 inch cutting from one of the canes coming out, and I'm going to say scarify, which means rough up the end of that cutting, closest to the roots, and put it in a pot with just moist potting mix, and stick a plastic bag over it, kind of create a little greenhouse. Keep it out of the main sun. Make sure that the potting mix stays moist. And we've had really good luck getting high percentages of those rooting doing that simple procedure. Now some folks will tell you just take that cutting and just jam it into the ground. I have never had that work. I know people, it works 100% of the time. I'm just going to tell you the way I do it. But it's pretty easy, and it is a really wonderful rose to have in your garden, and it's such a great story about how Peggy Martin found that rose after Katrina, had just flooded her wonderful garden for like 2 weeks after the storm. So if you want more of the story of the Peggy Martin rose, go ahead and look it up online. It is fascinating. Okay, let's see here. Now, Carolyn is asking me about strawberries. Um, and this is one of those areas where I am just not familiar with growing strawberries. That is just something that hasn't been in my wheelhouse. What I would do is contact your county extension. I'm assuming you're in Mississippi, or if you're not in Mississippi, you know, all states have extension offices, and contact them. If you wanted information Mississippi wise, I would contact Dr. Eric Staffney. He's our small fruit specialist with MSU, and he's based at Poplarville. And shoot him that question. I don't know, Ellen, if you could put Dr. Staffney's email up for, let's see, oh my gosh, here I've lost where I was at. Oh, put Dr. Staffney's email up for Carolyn. That would be helpful, and we can go from there. He's in a better position to give you the information that you want. Okay. Okay. So listen, now we got Dean from South Carolina. So I've just got a question, Dean. Where in South Carolina are you? Because I asked that because I did my bachelor's and master's at Clemson. And we lived up in the Seneca area, up in the northwest corner, for 15 years when we moved from Michigan. So I'm just curious about where you're at now. How far do you cut bananas back, and when? What I like to do, and I have bananas in my yard at various times. I grow them for a while, I take them out, then I'll plant some more, and I take them out. So it's kind of an ebb and flow. But what you want to do is wait until you're past the frost date. And then it's as simple as cutting that old stalk down. I used to use a wood saw and just cut it down. If it has melted because of cold, just let that be until you're past frost date, because that melting of the banana plant actually protects the growing point, because it grows from the inside out because it's a grass. So that's what I would do. Just wait till after frost date, cut it back, enjoy it. So bananas are great to have in the yard. Okay, and Sarita has a question. What's wrong with my Mandevilla plant? It doesn't have any blooms. What's wrong? It looks healthy. Is this one that, Sarita, that you've overwintered, or is this one that you've just planted? Because I'm just thinking I've just started seeing Mandevillas and oh, the other one that's bush-like that I'll remember the name. But the Mandevillas that we're seeing in the garden centers, tend to have a lot of blooms, but they're being grown in nurseries probably farther south than from where you are. And so they're blooming, and if they move north, they'll tend to shut down blooming a little bit because they're in new conditions. And that's something that my wife and we planted a Mandevilla in our front yard a couple weeks ago when I saw them. Had some blooms. The blooms all went away. Part of it was because the cold we had before Easter, and it hasn't started blooming again. It will. This is just one of those times just to be patient, because it's just April 9th and we have a long, hot summer ahead of us. And we'll get the nice blooms from these plants, later on into the spring and into the summer. So just patience is my advice right now. And Ellen has posted information on the Peggy Martin Rose story. We've got Dr. Staffney's contact information. I know he'll appreciate me giving that out. I'm going to blame it on Ellen, but I mean, this is what we do with Extension. We try and get you the best information that we can. Yeah, and Deanna says for the Mandevilla, they like full sun. Yeah, if you've got it that planted in shade, it's going to impact how much flowering that you're going to have with that plant. And I can't believe that we've run through all those questions already. I really appreciate the questions. One thing I wanted to bring up in my notes is, and this is partly from being up in Tennessee and partly being here at Brookhaven. We've seen a big, if you want to say big increase, or or in flowering or better flowering this year. And I think that a lot of that has to do with the cold weather that we've had. Um, you know, let's just face it, a lot of our flowering plants like to have some cold temperatures that just helps them with their process to switch over from, going through the winter to kind of ramp up into that vegetative growth in the spring. That cold weather really helps. And here in Brookhaven, we're talking to everybody, the azaleas were getting ready to pop, and then the cold weather hit, and it held them back. Same thing with camellias. And after those periods of cold weather, things have flowered better than they have in years. So we may not like the cold weather sometimes, or a lot of the time. I don't like the cold weather at all, but our plants really do like the cold weather and respond to it. One of the things that I've noticed in my yard is, I talk about really liking to grow citrus on the coast, and I've become a kind of a citrus collector. I've shown some of the citrus off in our daily dose videos, which will be firing up again here over the weekend. But all of my citrus are there's thousands of flowers, and they're all grouped up right now because I'm kind of rearranging things. But the side of my house just smells citrusy. You just walk through it, and it's like being enveloped in that citrus aroma. And I know that the trees won't be able to produce a fruit for every flower. It would be nice, but it's just not going to happen. But over the last couple of years, they haven't flowered like they have this year, and I think it's in response to the cold weather that we had. Now, we didn't have as nearly a cold weather as northern part of Mississippi, and other states in the southeast, but the trees really did respond to the cold weather. Let's see here. An Angel, she's got a lot of fruit trees in pots. Where do I get the pots? Where do you get those large pots? Well, Angel, I get those from the independent garden centers that I frequent here, on the Mississippi coast. Most of them will help you source materials. You can get sleeves. When I say sleeves, a group, 10 or 15 pots at a time. You just have to create that relationship with those owners. Don't go Lowe's, don't go Home Depot. They're all great stores, but they're not going to supply the big pots like I use at the Urban Nano Farm. That and it's an easy way to have a lot of fruit trees. I see that you really love the thought of having a lot of fruit trees. When you plant trees in the ground, you've got to give these trees space. But when you grow them in pots, it's kind of like growing tomatoes in pots. You can grow a lot more fruit trees. You can push the pots together. You don't have to have the spacing, and it really is a fun way, I think, to grow fruits and vegetables in pots. I'm a committed container grower, and I always will be. So, Angel, if you want some more information, go ahead, give me a call or give me an email, don't call because I'm never in the office. Email, you hit me up on Messenger here on Facebook, and I maybe I can help you source some things for you from the location where you're at. Okay, hope that helps you. And then Dean's asking, what plants do hummingbirds feed on? I've got a few on my feeders, but was expecting more from in South Carolina. Hummingbirds like flowers that are kind of tubular in shape. We don't see a lot of hummingbirds like on zinnias and things. We see hummingbirds like on honeysuckle, like on salvia. It's think about how a hummingbird comes in. It's got the long beak and it sticks its beak into deep into the flower, and to harvest the nectar in there. So plants that have those tubular type flowers. I love salvias, Cupfia, firecracker plant. Sometimes it's called cigar plant. There's one that's called Vermillionaire. It's a Mississippi medallion plant. We have hummingbirds on that all summer long. So that's what you need to look for. Red flowers help, but not necessarily is the absolute criteria. All the different salvias, there's red salvias, whites, blues, purples. The hummingbirds will be attracted to them all. So that's one thought as far as flower selection to go for that. And I'll tell you what, I am actually starting to lose my voice here, so I'm going to go ahead and say, it's been a fun morning. Send me emails. That'll give my voice a rest. If you're in the Jackson area, Jackson, Mississippi area, Brookhaven, I'm going to be at Buds and Blooms tomorrow at 11 o'clock, and we're going to talk about vegetable gardening. It's something I've been looking forward to this workshop, oh gosh, for about 4 months now, and it's a way that we can have some one-on-one interaction if you want to ask me some questions that way, and we can go from there. So I appreciate everybody that's hung around this morning with me on Ask Me Anything. I think these are going pretty good. At least Ellen tells me that they are. And let's try and do this every month and just keep the garden landscape conversation going. So with that, I'm going to say adios. Thanks for stopping in with me this morning. Again, questions, send them to me, southerngardening@msstate.edu, and look forward to some of our new daily dose videos that will be coming up. So listen, thanks a lot. We'll see you next time, guys.